Joy News Prime Headlines is brought to you by
Milo. Milo.
Tonight on Joy News Prime, National Democratic Congress declares it is opposed to political parties' participation and sponsorship of local government elections and vows to urge its members to vote no in the November 17 referendum.
We therefore decided to campaign for no vote at the referendum and to urge all Ghanaians to vote no at the referendum.
It also accused the president of misleading Ghanaians with his recent outburst or pronouncement, on the upcoming referendum.
We therefore decided to campaign for no vote at the referendum and to urge all Ghanaians to vote no at the referendum.
Judicial Service Staff Association declares strike from tomorrow over what it says has to do with government's failure to resolve their appeals for a pay rise. Joy Clean Ghana campaign discovers rat breeding grounds at Agbogloshi, Accra's largest foodstuff market. Also, in the bulletin, we'll be finding out why the budget should be of interest to everyone and what we should be looking out for to know if we could feel improvements in our pockets. I'm Israel. Joy News Prime comes to you live from the Joy News studio at Kokomlemle here in Accra with digital address GA0992539. Stay tuned in. The opposition NDC is urging the electorate to vote no in the upcoming referendum on whether to allow the participation and sponsorship of political parties in MMDC and local government elections. Addressing journalists at the party's headquarters Tuesday, Chairman Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo said although the NDC supports amendments for the election of MMDCs, which requires two-thirds majority in Parliament, it is against any move which will further polarize the country, especially at the local government level. The party has therefore served notice it will start the campaign for a no vote to prevent further division along political party lines and the monetization of Ghana's politics. There's more in this report.
Chairman of the party, Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo, said Ghana is already divided on partisan lines. According to him, the one thing that binds Ghanaians is the local governance system, which is run on non-partisan basis and therefore is able to rally all citizens for development.
At the meeting held last Thursday, the NEC of the NDC affirmed our long-held position that MMDCs should be elected. We, however, took the view that the local governance system should remain non-partisan and that individuals contest the elections, the District Assembly election and unit committee elections on their own merits. We therefore decided to campaign for no vote at the referendum and to urge all Ghanaians to vote no at the referendum. It is our well-considered view, and indeed that of well-meaning Ghanaians, that the needless NDC-MPP polarization at the national level should not be extended into the district assemblies and unit committees, which is what will happen if we vote to make the local government system partisan.
The party is also citing the cost of electing candidates as one of the reasons it is kicking against the yes vote.
Parties will have to sponsor about 7,000 of their members to participate in the assembly election. And in the unit committee, about 35,000, because for every electoral area, we have 5 unit committee members who are to be sponsored by the political parties. Do the political parties have the needed resources, the money? And you remember that if you want to get people into this position, then it requires that you are going to do primaries to elect members to represent you. And you are doing primaries in 7,000 electoral areas and 35,000 unit committee members.
The NDC is also accusing President Akufo-Addo and some state institutions of deliberately misleading the public to vote yes.
A notice put out by the EC saying, among others, that the referendum is to approve or reject the provision of whether MMDCs are to be voted for or not is palpably falsehood. the government was deliberately misleading people into believing that the referendum is to elect MMDCs, knowing that the election of MMDCs is the people's preference. No less a personality than the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo himself, made these false claims last week. In fact, the NCC should have called out the President for peddling disinformation and untruth. The Constitutional Amendment Bill 2008 has many ramifications for the smooth, effective, and harmonious administration of the metropolitan and district assemblies. It has to be thought through very well. Unfortunately, the bill as it is now is fatally flawed and cannot form the basis for the referendum to amend 55(3). It must be withdrawn. But if the government insists on making the assemblies partisan, then a new bill must be drafted, re-gazetted, and subject to serious scrutiny by Ghanaians.
Former Local Government and Rural Development Minister Kwamina Ahoy says election of MMDC on partisan lines is not the cure for the winner-takes-all phenomenon.
Why do you think that it is only the local government system that can stop the winner-takes-all? You can have a constitution that says that a certain number of ministers must be appointed from the opposition. And in any case, when we were fighting for partisan politics, didn't we know that this is what it is going to result in? In fact, if we change our voting system from first past the post.
The Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Haji Ali Mahama, meanwhile says President Akufo-Addo's earlier comment on the December 17 referendum is not misleading. Speaking on Top Story with Evan Spencer, the sector minister explained the amendment of Article 243, subsection 1 and 55, subsection 3 of the 1992 Constitution are linked, and that the NDC's latest position is at variance with their earlier promise and commitment to elect MMDCs on partisan lines.
Political parties' participation is so important. If you look at district level elections, the average is 35%. Sometimes it's as low as 25% participation, turnout. People don't come out. The average is 35%. I hear the highest has been 55% in 88, when we started with the district level election. The first district level election, that was when people came out, 55%. That has been the highest. Since then, it's come down. And it's about 35% on the average. But when it comes to political parties' activism and participation, people turn out. The last election was 85% turnout. President and MPs, it's 85% turnout. And you know why? The political parties play a role in bringing people out. There's that activity, that's mobilization. So even though political parties have disadvantages, they also promote people's participation. They promote development. So they play a role in pushing development in our communities.
We do apologize, that wasn't the insert we intended to play, but we'll bring you that insert when we get it. The Deputy Director of the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, Paul Abebio, has disclosed that the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, and the Criminal Investigations Department, CID, of the Ghana Police Service are pursuing some 21 fund managers who have allegedly escaped with the investments of their customers. This follows the regulator's revocation of the operating licenses of 53 of the fund managers. Speaking on PM Express, Mr. Abebio said the Attorney General's office is also looking into the matter and is expected to take the needed legal action.
I mean, some of the firms on the non-operating list did not actually have any assets under management. Some also, and I think people can also, I would say, run away. And that's why I bring in the EOCO and the CID, because we're going to do a people trace. And in this digital age, there are ways to find people. There are ways to trace assets. Where have they gone? And what do you do wherever they've gone? How do you bring it back into the system? And I think that is also part of the work that has gone on, getting the right resources to do some of these exercises.
Do you know where these 21 people are? 21 firms.
We know where some of them are.
So not all.
Not all.
That is a regulatory failure, surely.
Well, as a regulator, I mean, we also have to improve. And I think to Joe's point, in a sense, we are developing, and that is part of the developmental phase you go through. It is tough, it is heartbreaking, and to a certain extent, there's a lot more that needs to be done.
But
you'll bear with us that
you'll bear with regulatory failure.
No, you'll bear with us. A lot has been done.
It remains unclear when the SEC will begin the disbursement of customers' locked-up funds. This is despite the assurance that it will provide further details about the validation process in specific locations where investors can present their claims for payment.
I think that's why we've also come out to discuss the processes we follow and the steps around it. Clearly, in terms of people's anxieties, we appreciate that. And one of the things we encourage, we also say people should keep calm, because to be fair, some of these firms have had lapses for a while. So investors in these firms actually appreciate that what we've done now, in a sense, gives more visibility. They're not knowing what's actually happening and not knowing what steps we'll take. One of the challenges we face is that the legal regime covering our industry, some of the activities are actually outside our remit. For instance, the liquidation process, we actually have to write to the registrar, then she's going to apply to the court.
Has she done that already?
We've written to her. She has to.
You don't know whether she has done her part.
She's putting it together. She'll go to court in the course of the next week or so. She'll do that court process. So our attempt to put in place logistics to collect information. When the registrar goes into liquidation, she'll actually ask people to come and bring their claims. So what we are doing is really to support.
The Judicial Service Staff Association of Ghana, JUSAC, has asked its members to stay away from work from Wednesday, November 13. In a statement declaring the strike, JUSAC said its numerous calls for salary review for its members had gone unresolved. The statement reads, following a letter issued on November 1, 2019, giving notice of intended strike regarding the demand for the salary reviews negotiations of staff of the Judicial Service, there have been numerous meetings with management and the National Labour Commission. The leadership of JUSAC had also requested for the report emanating from the committee set up by the Judicial Council. Unfortunately, we have not received copies of the said report upon several demands. After a meeting with the National Labour Commission on November 11, 2019, the leadership of JUSAC had a meeting with our regional executives and our rank and file. With the result that since we have already complied with the procedures under the 1992 Constitution, they are unable to. But it concludes that in view of the above, the leadership of JUSAC is left no option than to declare an indefinite strike to demand the assenting and implementation of the Judicial Council Committee's report, and that 1. No staff member of JUSAC shall report to work on Wednesday, November 13, 2019, that's tomorrow. That until the implementation of the Judicial Council Committee's report, no staff member of JUSAC shall report to work. The security personnel of the Judicial Service shall, however, report to work to protect life and property. Staff members of JUSAC are to comply with the above directives and to stay tuned in for further notice. Thank you. And it is signed by Alex Nate, the National President of JUSAC. Right, let's return to our earlier story on the December 17 referendum and the position of the NDC, and they're saying that President Akufo-Addo misled Ghanaians with his pronouncement on it. The Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Hajia Alima Mahama, says President Akufo-Addo's earlier comment on the December 17 referendum is not misleading. Speaking on Top Story with Evan Spencer, the sector minister explained that the amendments of the 1992 Constitution are linked and that the NDC's latest position is a variance with their earlier promise and commitment to elect MMDCs on partisan lines.
No, there is no miscampaign or misinformation. The whole process of the referendum started with the discussion on election of MMDCs. And the Minister of Local Government prepared a roadmap on this matter. On its government took the decision that we have to move towards election of our MMDCs on partisan basis. And I shared the roadmap with everybody. I had 2 different media encounters. We had regional sensitization. All parties were invited. We had national sensitization. We met with party people. And in the roadmap, we stated that the first step towards electing our metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives is amendment of Article 55(3) of the 1992 Constitution, an entrenched clause. We need to amend it to pave way for election of our MMDCs on partisan basis, pave way for political parties to participate in district level elections, including MMDCs. So the whole conversation about amendment of Article 55(3) started because the decision was taken to elect our MMDC on partisan basis.
Pardon my interjection, but the fundamental argument by the NDC and others who are campaigning for no is that 55(3) has nothing to do with the constitutional non-entrenched provision, which takes away the powers of the president to appoint MMDCs.
Yes, but that's why I am explaining. I'm saying that we even went into this issue of amendment of Article 55(3) because the decision was taken to elect MMDCs on partisan basis. Then we said there are 2 fundamental provisions of the Constitution, articles in the Constitution to amend. Article 2431, that is not an entrenched clause. It has to be done by Parliament, and with the third majority, we have it approved. We've gone through all the motions on Article 2431. It was sent to Parliament, sent to Council of State for advice, sent to Parliament, sent to the Committee on Constitutional, Legal, and Parliamentary Affairs.
You're watching Joy News Prime. We're taking a break, but still ahead. Joy Clean Ghana campaign discovers rat breeding grounds at Agbogbo, Accra's largest foodstuff market.
The drains are filled up, and you can see maggot growth, and they are selling food on top of the drain. So we are asking them to, so you can see infestation of rodents, because these rodents like areas that are filthy and dirty.
Also in the bulletin, we'll be finding out why the budget should be of interest to everyone and what we should be looking out for to know if we could feel improvements in our pocket. Stay tuned in. We'll be back in a bit. Right, so tomorrow, Wednesday, November 13, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, will be in Parliament to present the 2020 budget. This will be one of the usual, or it's an annual ritual that happens all the time. Would have the Finance Minister make such a presentation. But why should you be concerned about the budget that's presented to Parliament? I have Philip Namfuri of Joy Business is joining me in the studio, and he's going to be telling us all about that. So we have the Finance Minister involved. We have several Finance Ministers come to Parliament to present the budget. Apart from the usual tax is going to go up, which would impact directly on the individual, why should we be bothered?
Okay, Israel, thank you very much. So budgets are ways governments tell us how they want to raise money from us and how they want to spend in order to improve our lives. They also use the opportunity to tell us how the economy has performed over the course of the last time they presented a budget and where they want us to head in the future. Now, that's for generic terms. Yeah. Now, come down to Ghana. Since this government came into power, they've had the 2017, 2018, 2019, and now we're going through the 2020 budget. Now, this is the first budget since this administration came into power that's going to be done without an IMF program hanging over their head. Right. So that's the first one. 2, it's a budget that's going into an election year, 2020, where
governments typically tend to overspend.
Exactly. And there was a blog by some IMF economist or World Bank economist that told us that since about 2000 till date, every election year we've had overspending except the year 2004. But election year spending is a problem because of the concomitant effects it has on the economy. Now, individuals should be interested because, 1, government tells us how they're going to raise the revenue. And if you look at our demographics, you realize that a high proportion of people who are taxed are in the formal system rather than the informal. So you and I carry the burdens of a lot of people who also should be carrying the burdens. Government says they're going to bring the tax identification number which was rolled out. They're going to find means of roping in the informal sector. We're not seeing an active number increase in the informal sector side. So we're raising money from people like you and I so that we can fund activities of people who are below you and I. So on the expenditure front, they take money from us, and you realize that personal income taxes from the few that are paying are very high if you check the line items of the budget. Other ones come into play, but personal income tax is very high. Now you go to the expenditure front, you realize that over the course of several financial years, even as far back as Dr. Kwamna before, government spends a lot on three main items: the wages and compensation of government workers, the interest payments on our debt, and then the statutory funds like the GET fund, etc. So imagine we have a situation where we're not raising enough revenue to spend. Imagine you had a loved one who was receiving funds from GET fund somewhere in Russia. All of a sudden, this person becomes constrained. These are very minute things we don't seem to see. But if there's a problem coming from revenue, we can't spend on people like that. If government doesn't check its public sector wages, then all the money we raise as revenue goes to pay these workers and to service our debt, with little left for what we call capital expenditure. That's the tangibles we want to see. So if we don't see these projects, then you know there's agitation from the people. And how does government do it? Either through loans or grants from these foreign institutions. What are the impacts of these loans? They go to increase our debt. What's the impact on our debt? The same revenues we raise, more of it will go to service the debt we take, to pay these wages and salaries, because the public sector numbers are not dwindling. Either they are being stagnant or they are going up.
No, a lot of the time when the budget is read, they talk about growth figures, and a lot of the time you hear governments talk about the fact that there's been growth. The president has been speaking about that in South Africa, and the fact that we've seen, persistent growth, consistent growth. But people are wondering, what is growth if I don't feel it in my pocket?
Good one, Israel. There's always a disconnect between the macro economic indicators, the growth as measured by GDP, which is the most common one, and then how people want to feel things in their pocket. What these metrics simply do is to see how, in aggregate, how the whole economy is moving. But on the individual level, other factors come to play to affect it. We've never had we've had banking sector challenges. We've never had one of this magnitude where a lot of funds have been locked up and people have been directly affected. People are feeling the squeeze. We've had this SEC issue very, very recently. This is one of many issues which go to affect people. People have lost jobs.
Right.
So we may be growing in terms of the numbers. And if you look at our growth, most of our growth comes from hydrocarbons, fueled by the oil industry. And nobody eats and drinks oil. And our service economy, or our economy, is heavily dominated by the service sector. Who eats insurance? Who eats banking? Who eats telecommunications? They don't have the capacity to employ large numbers for people to feel it. Agric has the capacity to do that. Manufacturing has. But they're having their own challenges. Numbers are falling, and they're not having the ability to employ high numbers of people.
Okay. One other thing that people usually would get excited about, or have been told to get excited about, is when government is ready to spend in an economy. Because the more government spends, the more the money trickles down to individuals, the more jobs you have around, and people tend to somehow feel it. Is there any indication in this budget, considering the fact that government has been talking about the Sino-Hydro projects coming on stream and all that, that we're going to get a lot more money circulating, which would mean that, individuals can expect something coming through?
Okay, so I remember our colleague George Rafi had a discussion with Dr. Makasibe Yabua, chairman of the Finance Committee of Parliament, and he was talking, he was indicating that this is going to be a tight budget. And by tight budget,
this 2020
this
budget.
2020, because tight budget. And by tight, they mean contractionary. So we shouldn't see an expansionary one. What we've had, the most recent one, 2019, was more or less expansionary. Why? They budgeted for 74 billion in expenditure. And when they went for the appropriation bill, it was 78. Then media review came, and the finance minister came and said, we need to add more, over 6 billion, and it went up to 85 billion. So that's an expansionary one. But if you look at where the expansion is going, is it going to capital expenditure that's going to build projects, or is going to things that some would consider as recurrent, or they are going to vaporize over a course of time? Some of the reasons he had used for asking for the 6 billion was to deal with the security issues in the sub-region, which is necessary for us, but it's not going to immediately solve problems of people's financial needs. Now, down to the question about more money in the system. If we go by what Dr. Makasibi said, and the budget is going to be tight, we should expect some staggering of funds. But funds should, however, go to places where they are needed. Let me borrow your pen here and use an example. When
I'll give you a paper as well.
Okay, thank you. So, if we have a bank that's sitting here, it's supposed to receive, it has given money to a contractor, and the contractor goes to undertake a government project. And all of a sudden, government is delaying. And we've heard so many times about the delays in giving contractors money. This contractor has a family. He has beneficiaries. If government doesn't pay him immediately, he can also pay the bank back immediately. The bank also starts suffering in its non-performing loans.
Right.
And this was one of the core reasons why 2015, 2016, we had troubles with the banking sector.
So hold it. If we have a situation where government decides that I'm going to pay the contractors, and the president has been talking about it, that we're going to pay the contractors, you have quite a substantial amount of money to pay them. Does it mean that immediately, if the contractors are paid, money is going to trickle down to people?
We should always account for the time lag effect. It always takes time for these things to
trickle down,
sink down into the economy. So once they are paid, they go and issue their certificates, etc. Everybody gets their money. Then they also make good what they owed the banks. Then the banks also are also lively, and all things being equal, have enough to advance credit. That's also another discussion for a different day.
Right.
But if you just look at by this simple model, you realize that if government makes good on its promises to give funds to the right quarters, everything will be well and good, rather than withholding. We are trying to trim our expenditure. But at the same time, we should think about the fact that certain areas cannot do without funds.
Right.
Get fund, for example, these statutory payments and all other things, people's wages, etc. There are some areas where we need to look and say, okay, you know what, we're pumping money there regardless. But all these must be taken into account. It's always a balancing act. And we should look out tomorrow and see what the finance minister has to tell us.
Right, sure. And here on, you can expect that here on Joy News, we're bringing you extensive coverage of the 2020 budget.
Yes, please.
All right, and it's going to be led by you and a number of others.
Indeed, it is.
Okay. Thank you very much, Philip Namfuri with Joy Business. Just a day to the presentation of the 2020 budget statement, a tax expert is cautioning governments against proposals by civil society groups and individuals to increase taxes on tobacco, cigarettes, and other goods deemed harmful to society. The caution comes at a time the public appears divided in its support of such a hike in a tax, also referred to as a sin tax. The Joy News Health Desk explores this further in the following report by Matilda Lomega.
Interest groups fighting against the spread of non-communicable diseases, NCDs, in the country are proposing an increment in taxes on tobacco, cigarette, alcohol and other sugar-sweetened products to increase their prices so as to make them unattractive for consumption. According to statistics, overweight, obesity, cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular and other non-communicable and chronic diseases, once considered as problems in only high-income countries, are now on the rise in low and middle-income countries, including Ghana, and particularly in urban settings. Evidence suggests that reducing the consumption of cigarettes and other tobacco-related products and alcohol reduces the risk of unhealthy weight gain in adults and other NCDs. The proposal, which seeks an increment in the ad valorem excise tax on tobacco, which currently stands at 175%, by at least 50% to 252% in the 2020 budget statement, has already been submitted to the Finance Ministry. Labram Musa is Programs Director for Vision for Alternative Development, the group championing this proposal.
And the WHO and other world-meaning institutions have actually recommended taxes on these commodities, so that at least when you increase on this commodity, it reduces consumption. That's number one. It also reduces the poor and the vulnerable, who are mostly the target of this particular industry. It also reduces their consumption level. It also serves as a huge revenue stream for government, to finance its national health insurance. Which is currently having a lot of problems, and even many health issues that the country is currently, struggling to,
On the streets, Ghanaians seems divided on the matter.
In order for the numbers of those who are smoking to deplete, they understand, I strongly believe that it's a laudable idea, and we all need to support it.
or taking in alcohol is not just something we see, but it's more of an addiction, it's more of an attitude or a behavior. And if we probably want to change behavior, there are many ways of doing it, not increasing taxes. You can increase taxes though, but still people will purchase it.
Tax expert William Owusu-Dementia says the government must tread cautiously on that path.
Government must first do that analysis, get to know that if I impose the tax on a particular product, what will be the reaction of the normal consumer? Would I get the needed revenue? Would it deter them? Or they will still continue to purchase anyway? These are analyses we need to do before we decide to go ahead and implement the tax on some of these products.
Okay, but is this something that you think is feasible?
Yes, I mean, generally, that's what we call it sin tax, is to prevent people from doing a particular thing that government considers to be detrimental to society. So normally you do it by either imposing what we call excise duties on them, or imposing duties on them when they are imported. Import duties are inched up on these products. But one thing we found is that the world over, these sin taxes do not really deter people. It can reduce the consumption some people make on it, but it really doesn't serve as a deterrence.
The government's decision will only be determined in the 2020 budget, set for presentation on Wednesday. For Joy News, Matilda Bumagam, Accra.
Statistics from the WHO reveal air pollution kills 28,000 people in Ghana annually, and about 203 out of every 100,000 deaths in Ghana are air pollution related. Aside from the pollution from cars, it is common to see some Ghanaians burn all forms of toxic waste indiscriminately into the atmosphere without caution. This and many other human activities have recently led to an increase in respiratory diseases, according to records from the Accra Metropolitan Assembly's Health Directorate. The Mayor of Accra, Mohammed Ejaisoa, says the Assembly has procured air monitoring equipment expected to be installed at some locations in Accra to save the situation. Kwame Ofe has more in this report.
The announcement by the Accra Metropolitan Assembly is part of a strategy to mitigate and control the impact of air pollution in Accra, it says. The Assembly says this has become necessary following recent revelation by its Health Directorate that there is a rise in respiratory diseases in the metropolis. Mayor of Accra, Mohammed Ejaisoa, spoke to Joy News' Kwame Ofe about how they intend to use the air monitoring device to change the situation.
It's the very first time that an assembly is taking it upon itself to also procure those devices and monitor it, because we have the quality, we have the men in our assembly now that are doing so, and we are mindful of this, that the health of your citizens also matters to us. Report or data from our health directorate indicates that, respiratory related diseases are increasing, and it's all as a result of pollution. So once we've deployed the air quality monitoring and sensors and the gadgets around that is monitoring, we should be able to know which area is more polluted and what are the causes of the pollution and when we deal with it.
Mayor of Accra, Mohammed Ejaisoa, speaking on the sidelines of a press conference, also shared how improper disposal of waste has contributed to the trend.
An example is the fact that we realize that one of the main causes of pollution is the burning of waste. So people collect the waste, they don't dispose it off properly, but they like to burn it. In their mind, they are also finding a way of disposing of the waste. But that is also eventually polluting the air. So if you move around communities like Jamestown, Mamprobi, Kolegono, we are aggressively deploying free bins to the various households so that they would also have a bin or a receptacle to store their waste. These are interventions to deal with waste, but it's also linked up to reducing air pollution.
According to the mayor, the level of flooding in the city has reduced because of some significant interventions by the assembly.
For the past, 2 decades, and yet we had not experienced any major flooding in Accra. It is not by accident. It is through dint of hard work and the effort that we are putting. It doesn't mean that we may not experience flooding. It could be, the factors could be different, But the major issues that are confronting us, we are dealing with it. And we are hopeful that as we make progress, by the end of next year, the man-induced flooding or the human-induced flooding will be drastically reduced. The dredging of the Korle Lagoon has opened up the Korle Lagoon to become a major basin to receive the water before it disposes it off into the sea. And the dredging is ongoing. The first light main drain has been constructed, and many other areas that we have also worked on.
As part of a preparation to reduce the carnage on our roads as Christmas approaches, the Assembly plans to launch what it calls the Mass Road Safety Campaign.
We're starting from tomorrow. In fact, tomorrow we are launching the Mass Road Safety Campaign. Fortunately, it's going to be dovetailed into the Christmas festival. Road safety is very key and is part of our key agenda. People don't pay attention to it, but the number of people that are dying, the number of people that have suffered various degrees of injury as a result of road crashes seem to be affecting the economy and the social life of Accra. And that's what we seek to make sure that we address it as part of my administration.
Kwame Ofesh reports for Joy News.
The Joy Clean Ghana campaign task force on Monday discovered that Accra's largest foodstuff market apparently also breeds black rats, whose urine is quite poisonous. Humans who consume food contaminated with the urine, officials say, could develop a number of bacterial diseases such as Salmonella and Listeria. Nanseme Fadradozi reports Tuesday's visit to the Agbogboleshi market proved to be yet another horrifying expose on the terrible sanitation situation in Accra.
Ordinarily, markets are expected to be the cleanest spaces. The Agbogboleshi market is said to be one of Ghana's largest food hubs. In Accra, it is where most bulk buyers go for their stock.
You know, every market there are rules and regulations. In this market,
Madam Florence Kuchi targeted women who were selling on the drains, and she said it was illegal.
We are going to classify all the food products that are being displaced on the drain and then remove all the pallet.
Instructions were issued for those who had arranged plantains, kontomire, yam and other foodstuffs on the drain to have their items confiscated.
Any food product on the drain, please carry it. After that, in front of the drain.
But Madam Florence changed her mind and asked that the pallets be moved from the drains. It was when the pallets were raised that dozens of huge black rats, also known as rattus, jumped out of the gutters into the markets.
Because when we come to distill the drain, they are the very people who fill the drain back with their food products. And you see all the drains are filled up, and you can see maggot growth, and they are selling food on top of the drain. So we are asking them to, so you can see infestation of rodents. Because these rodents like areas that are filthy and dirty with food debris. That is where they like. So we want them to distill the drain right now.
Besides the black rats that got everyone running helter-skelter, the stench emanating from the gutter came out with rotten plantains, bananas, plastics, and of course, all in thick black water.
They have been warned several times. We've conscripted their team several occasions. You see, they are not protesting. If they were not to be aware, they would have started protesting. But because they know that they are not supposed to be here, they are not protesting. You see, they are all running. They are not mines, so these are ratus.
The inspectors announced the team will watch guard all day for the gutters to be desilted.
They will desil the drain until they finish before we leave here.
One by one, they took out their rakes, shovels and long brooms to remove all the trash, only to discover the breeding grounds of the rats. These are pink baby rats, turning and left alone after getting exposed to the sun.
The baby rodents. Mami munyi nyama no, munyi ni nyina free ha. Obi ani nyama wa wall na nim nyina. What are you people doing?
They are the major cause of fire outbreaks in the markets. What they do is that they know the electrical wires, and when they chew the electrical wire, we call it noise. But to the layman understanding, when they chew the electrical wires and they get in touch with positive and negative, that is where we get the fire outbreak. Apart from the fire outbreak, they contaminate the food products that they bring for sale because they eat, and their hair is contagious. We get the plague, when we talk of plague disease, it's from the rat. So they are very, very harmful and dangerous animals that I think that efforts should be made at the market centers to control their breeding.
But as the market women were clearing, other men joined. Shortly after, more and more people joined. Even after midday, the team was determined to stay.
We are going to be here till everything is clear. Not all, but as we are doing, you see that others are also joining. So they'll keep joining. So we've called for the boiler taxis. The boiler taxis are coming.
Soon, the entire stretch of the shoulder of the road was filled with black waste as other people also entered the gutters to clean. The trash cars were in and the garbage was evacuated. Though they earlier complained about cleaning the gutter, they were impressed with what they were able to achieve and promised to continue.
My idea before, especially Obano said near them papa and Tiasrano said edu time now every month now echo a Saturday be a baby got and fine. Near CSC Hasenia.
Madam Florence, however, noticed some of the market women were selling rotten tomatoes.
Tomatoes we can't wait home. Where are the guys? Please take these tomatoes and go and put it in the car. Hello? Please come and take these tomatoes and go and put it in the car. They are rotten. Yes, they are rotten tomatoes. Still, they are selling it. So we are confiscating it. We are not going to allow them to sell the rotten tomatoes for the people to use it to cook food for us. Most of us take our meal from the roadside, and this is what they use in preparing food for us. Please serve this woman a notice. Part is for her, and serve this woman too.
The team was also impressed with what had been achieved.
It was successful because we've made them to distill. The reason is they are the same people who dispose of the food debris into the drains. So we have asked them to distill, and this is what we call polluter distilled as you generate. So they are collecting their own refuse, and you saw that everybody was inclusive. It was all inclusive. This shows that the education we've been giving them, it is really sinking down into their brains, just that they are refusing to abide by it.
The visit to Agbogboji will certainly not end here till all the rattles are cleared.
Managers of the Chamfor Lorry Terminal in Kumasi are facing legal action after the Metropolitan Assembly and Lava Firm Insura FM Sanitation Task Force found the public toilet there has no septic tank. As a result, effluent from the facilities discharged into the Kejetia drain. The market in the Imbrom suburb also operates in a rather filthy environment. Lava Firm's Erastus Sasaradonko was with the team in our reports.
Sitting deep in the center within the Kejetia enclave, the Chamfor terminal is a transit point for thousands of commuters. Beneath the beautiful edifice, sadly, is a huge environmental crisis. A heavily littered environment, choked, filthy drains left uncleaned for days with an unbearably pungent smell. The terminal has one public toilet with an estimated 500 visits or more a day in the absence of a septic tank confirmed by failure of managers to show one.
Quick trains, the one at the market. Okay. That's where they have connected the pipe into it. They don't have the tank. Yes, the one here is not working. Told you that we don't have. It's just that where is the septic tank? I said I don't know where it is. So without that, I see that you are opening you are just defecating directly in the drain. So, Director, is that your name again? I'm Victor. Mr. Victor, I have asked you to tell me where the septic tank or the toilet is. It's unfortunate you are not able to tell me. So I'm closing the toilet down. Make sure you observe it. Don't open it because the toilet is not having septic tank. From today, unless I see the septic tank, you can't operate. So I'm closing it today and ensure that it is closed and closed for unless you have got the septic tank.
So the over 500 people a day who visit the public toilet here at the Chamfor Market defecate directly into this drain right here. They pump their fecal matter directly through this hole you see behind me, and so you can see direct raw fecal matter in there, and this is where they use as a septic tank.
The task force was left with no option but to seize all uncovered food being sold at the terminal.
What I saw here is not the best. So do that. However, I will take you on. That one, you say the name is what? Victor what? Sachi. I will come and issue a summon to you to appear before the court to explain to them why you have allowed the place to be filthy like that.
But I cannot argue with you, sir. But I've taken everything that you've said. We will try to keep the place tidy henceforth. When you come the next time to verify, you will see such a thing.
But where is your septic tank? Because you're operating a public toilet
like I said,
without a septic tank.
Like I said, I don't know where it is at the moment.
Work has begun on an ultra-modern forensic laboratory for the Ghana National Fire Service in Accra. The facility will help firefighters identify sources and causes of fire outbreaks using scientific means for more accurate fire investigations. Philip Ankra was at the sword casting ceremony and filed this report read to you.
The Ghana National Fire Service has over the years faced a lot of challenges, from inadequate personnel to the lack of logistics to execute its mandate. In recent times, the service has had challenges conducting forensic audits into fire outbreaks due to the lack of equipment. Now, this will be a thing of the past, because on Tuesday, the service started the construction of a 2-story forensic laboratory at the national headquarters. The laboratory, when completed, will be furnished with state-of-the-art equipment to help unravel the cause of fires in the country. Here is Deputy Interior Minister Henry Quartey.
You would agree with me that in time past, it has been challenging for the Ghana National Fire Service to have a modern equipment by way of being able to bring about, if you like, a very, very technologically advanced, if you like, convincing forensic reports. And so the Chief Fire Officer deemed it necessary around this time to put up such a facility. And we believe that going forward, this facility will help the firefighters. We are not saying that there should be fire outbreaks in the country, but should there be, we'll have conclusive reports for the fire investigators and, of course, the intelligence agencies to be able to build up cases and find out reasons why certain fires occurs and possible ways of combating fire in the country. So I think it's in a very right direction. As you rightly heard, the Chief Fire Officer, the President of the Republic of Ghana, who is committed to ensuring that the security agencies are well retooled to be able to combat crime in the country, to be able to protect lives and properties.
As part of measures to have the right personnel manning the laboratory, the service has agreed with the University of Cape Coast to train its personnel in fire forensic investigation. According to the Chief Fire Officer, Edwin Eko Blankson, it will address the scientific needs of the service, making it more effective and efficient.
Why we have entered into collaboration with the University of Cape Coast Now, all the graduates, those who graduated just recently, all of them went through forensic investigation training. So at least they have a basic idea of what they are supposed to do. We are planning to put about 200 to go for specialist training at the same university. The University of Cape Coast is also trying to improve the skills of all the firemen. I believe that if we are able to liaise with other academic institutions, other professional institutions, fire service will be modernized to be at the same level as we have in Europe and other developed countries.
The laboratory is being funded by the National Insurance Commission at a cost of 200,000 Ghana cedis. For Joy News, Philip Ankres report.
The minority in Parliament has questioned the figures churned out by the Deputy Education Minister, Dr. Yao Educhum, that only 29 Community Day Senior High School E-blocks were completed by the Eswa Mama administration. The Deputy Minister is in answering questions from Kwabre East MP Francisca Oting-Mensah indicated that 27 of such schools have been completed and operationalized by the current administration since January 2017. But former Deputy Education Minister Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa challenged the figures, arguing the NDC administration commissioned 49 of such schools before leaving office. Here are excerpts.
Mr. Speaker, the Ministry through GET Fund is committed to completing all ongoing and stalled projects, including the outstanding community senior high school projects, also known as the E-blocks. Mr. Speaker, it should however be noted that a total number of 27 community senior high schools have been completed and operationalized from January 2017 to date for use by students. Order. Mr. Speaker, there were 124 E-blocks that we inherited. As of December 2016, 29 had been completed.
E-blocks were inherited by the Akufo-Addo government, the government of His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. The Honorable Deputy Minister says 29. How does he reconcile the figure 29 with the 46 that President Mahama commissioned personally before handing over?
The record is clear. The fact that we commissioned may not necessarily be completed, but the records we have indicate that 29 were completed as of December 2016, an emphasis on completed, and 27 were completed as of January 2017.
All right, and that'll be it. Thank you very much for joining us and for watching Joy News Prime. I am Mr. Lai. You have a good night.